why it's different. The storm and the plague and the rats.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been following you, and I've been following the rat love.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me where it was? Have you all been following the rat love? Yes. See, okay, there are other people.
Yeah, I wrote about rats. The rat stuff is not in the book. It's just more of my personal life. There's been a rat explosion, I guess, here in New York City, just when we needed it the most.
Of course.
And so I think it's also kind of the excitement and anxiety I have about this book coming out and not all of my innermost thoughts, because that would be like boring and inappropriate, but a lot of my, when you put your stuff out there.
Yeah.
So my anxiety somehow just moved from the book to just thinking about rats all the time and looking at rats and looking for rats and picking up stories about rats. And I'm a rat woman now.
I appreciate this so much because you've also, I think we all have a certain level of rat anxiety, just as New Yorkers, and so I feel like you're doing us a great service with your neuroses. Like, I feel like you're giving us a gift, which is not actually totally different from my experience of reading your book and laughing out loud at so many of the painful, funny things, but also feeling very seen in the way, that you're like, oh my God, someone else thinks that, and then like, I'm not so weird, and then, oh no, I'm really weird. It's like all the many levels that you can feel seen. I want to talk for a second about the title, where it comes from. I know obviously a little bit of the story, but why that was the title for you?
Yeah, it was, I first heard those words, and I think probably many of us heard them in 2017 when something terrible happened on the Max, on public transit in Portland, and there was a white supremacist who was verbally threatening two girls on the train, teenage girls, and one in hijab, one girl was black, and three men stepped in to defend the girls and ultimately saved them because the girls made it out okay. But two of the men were killed and one was badly injured by Jeremy Christian, who was the white supremacist, white nationalist. And one man, Ricky Best, died, he was 53, and another man, Taliesin Ridden Namkai Meche, died, he was 23, and Ricky Best was 53. And as he was dying, he said, "Tell everyone on this train I love them." And I guess the story of the men's heroism and the violence of the attack and his last words all kind of came out at the same time. But it was the words that really stopped me in my tracks. Yeah. Because I thought, instinctually I thought, oh, that's correct. I had this feeling yeah, he's exactly right to love everybody on this train. But I was also baffled by them because I thought he was in the process of dying, being murdered, and that's what he said. So they kind of guided where I looked and what I decided to write about since 2017 and since all of these kind of paroxysms that are happening in the country. Those words were a little bit of a talisman for me. I kind of held on to them. I would say at my best, I could hold on to them and to try to love everybody on the train. Not always successfully, but I think they were such a guide to me that when I was thinking, okay, this was all the work I've been doing, this is all my writing, my thinking, and my heart, and so I'll call it that. So it's those words, and I spoke with his parents just last week, actually.
Wow. Yeah,
because I wanted to contact them before the book came out. I didn't want him to get a fright, or he has a huge family and a circle of friends, of course, and was a very loved person, I came to find out. So I spoke to them, and the words that he said were huge in their lives as well. His dad said, Christopher Dupras, his dad's name, and he said, that they, I don't want to misquote him, but he basically said that it was, it eased the trauma for him, the fact that he understood that his son, Taliesin, reached what he called a unified consciousness. Wow. As he was passing, that he just felt this deep connection with everyone on the train, and that, yeah, we do appear separate, but of course we're connected, and, you know, there's nothing wishy-washy about that.
Right.
That's a very intense truth, like a truth of physics, a truth of faith. And so I feel really, you know, I didn't know the man, like he was a stranger to me, and still these words that he said, like really hit home for me. So I'm glad that I called the book that, and I'm glad that they will continue, I hope, to be some kind of a guide for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really interesting as you say that, because one of the things that I think about when I heard that story, and then when I was thinking about the title, is there's also something really healing about that. Like you say that his father felt a certain way, but there's something really interesting about offering a healing in a moment of trauma, which to me also makes sense with both the subject matters that you took on here, but I think you do this thing really well, which is, I have to ask you a question first, which is, I feel like it's very hard to know who I am in this moment because I felt very stuck. I'm sure all of us feel very stuck, but it's very hard to know who I am anymore. There was the before, and then I feel like I'm waiting to figure out who I am.
Right.
But you've done this really beautiful thing, which I think is a real gift, which is you've just been exactly who you are in this moment when it's impossible to know. And I'm curious about, when you were thinking about the subjects that you were going to take on, you said it was a guiding force. But how, like, what did you have any guidance for yourself in terms of like, I can take on this subject, or I can look at this because I'm curious, or like, this one's burning a hole in me? Was there any sort of like, this is the constraint around these essays, this is what ties them together?
Yeah, I think that figuring out, like, how you put it so beautifully, like who I am in this moment, and also there's this like Hannah Arendt line, well not like a line, like she throws out lines. Like,
She throws out a lot of lines.
Yeah. But like she spoke a lot about like it's so important to stop and think what we are doing.
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of what I usually do, you know. And to stop and think what we are doing. So I think I was lucky to have the space of a book. I'm sure lots of you here are writers, and writing is a way of thinking, right? And it's a way of figuring out the truth of something, even if that's just your own emotions, like whatever it is. So I think that I knew I wanted the book to try and understand what the US is today and what it means. I also wanted to, you know, it's really important for me, and I think it's something that really speaks to me about what you do, is to be funny about serious things. And that's, so, you know, I write about American exceptionalism and about, you know, how I get so frustrated with Americans who don't understand, like, what their country means to the rest of the world. Right. But I wrote about that by watching 90 Day Fiancé for like hours by myself.
It's the best education, of course. Yeah.
It's, you know, 90 Day Fiancé is actually on I'm not going to say THC, that's wrong. The Learning Channel, TLC. 90 Day Fiancé is on the Learning Channel. So, I mean, speaking as an intellectual, you know, like, I used it, and they, luckily for me, they have like 12 spin-off shows. So, so I think that was another important thing for me too, honestly, Mira, was to try and see, is there like a funny way of doing this? I mean, all of us in our actual day-to-day lives are wrestling with, you know, you name it, like these huge problems, existential and day-to-day. So I wanted to selfishly do that too, but also try and be funny about it.
Okay, so one of the things that's amazing.
Did you like that one? I actually act as well, so casting, probably a lot of Hollywood.
A lot of vibes right now?
Yeah, I get a lot of Hollywood vibes from this audience.
So in terms of the humor, the thing that I love about your humor is it doesn't feel particularly planned. I mean, there is a kind of art to that, right? Walking right up to it. But when you're writing...
Like, do you mean when you almost fell onto the stage?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But that was planned, right?
Yeah, we worked on that. We've been choreographing.
Meant to do that. But it doesn't feel... It feels effortless. And I know when I'm writing humor, I'm actually pretty sad when I'm writing it. Like, I'm somewhere between pretty sad and pretty angry. And that's when the funniest parts come out. It's like there's some self-saving part of me that's on the outside being like, come on, asshole! You know what I mean? Just like, live a little. When you're writing and you're writing specifically toward a kind of humor. What kind of emotional state are you in?
Yeah, I think probably similar. I think that, it's such a good conduit for those feelings. Now, I've had to work on, in my personal life, if I do feel full of rage, like, to actually express that and not make a joke about it. But like,
the joke's really good.
But like, I think in writing or in any form of creativity, any way that you can share is good, and any way that it will connect with somebody else is good. And I find it really tedious when people think that like only serious stuff can be taken seriously,
yes.
and that like, these, how like there's so many adjectives that are thrown around about different pieces of craft or areas. Harrowing, harrowing, never lets up, just a brutal portrayal, urgent. I actually think I might have used the word urgent about my book, but anyway. Yeah, do you know? And I'm always just like, okay, congratulations, like we all feel that way.
Yeah.
Yes, it is relentless. Duh, like that's,
Well, there's never a risk in saying that you like something smart, right? People will only think you're smart, whereas humor is a very particular thing, and people will think that you're dumb if you like something, if you think something's funny that they don't think is funny. They'll be like, you're a little dumb.
Yeah, I know, and it's like, it's so unfair, I think, because I came up in comedy, I've been doing stand-up forever, and like, and seeing, so I have a bit of a benefit, I think, because they're like, okay, she's a comedian, so they're not too shocked if I make a joke, but like, I hope I'm not like people, Ashley C. Ford, who's like such a fun, wonderful writer, and Somebody's Daughter is her memoir, it's incredible. But like, I remember she wrote this like think piece about like how much she hates red velvet cake, and like because she's like a serious writer, people didn't understand she was joking. This woman had so many jokes in that piece about red velvet cake that was so fucking funny to me, and people were just like, well. And because I guess like they just didn't expect it from her or something, and it made me just fall in love with her.
Yeah.
I just love when people are funny on purpose. I think it is quite brave, and it is a bit of a risk. I mean, do you get that sometimes when you're making a joke and people are like, but wait, you're speaking about race in America, you couldn't possibly be joking.
Right, of course. And then there's also sort of like what does it mean if you're willing to do that, right? But the thing that I find often with humor, especially when you're taking on subjects that are politically loaded, right? And then they also they come with a certain amount of, if you're in America, race with a lot of emotional trauma and baggage located within them. I always think that there's a thing that happens when you're laughing, which is that you're able to move your positionality in a different way than you would be if you're just reading a think piece on something. It's like you're doing this active work and your brain is telling you to make the connections and fire it up. But if you're laughing, there's some release of muscle that helps you just slip into a different place. And the growth that you do in that moment, to me, is really wild. I'm always sad when people don't recognize that quality that humor has. Which I found a lot when I was reading your book. Like, there are things that are laugh out loud. I love the overdosing. There's much already been written about this, but there's a wonderful overdosing on weed, candies.
Yes.
Chapter.
Yeah,
and you talk about that.
I mean, it happens. I mean, does it happen like every minute of every day now? Like, there's somebody sitting in here, absolutely right now, who's half tripping balls. It's just so common.
Yes.
And so I was like, maybe I shouldn't write about my experience of it, but then I was, I had a deadline. And some things that happen are just comical, but again, like they're a way in. Yeah. And I remember, like, with my editor, Rachel, who used to edit me at the New York Times, we used to joke about, like, you put a joke in and, like, they open their mouth to laugh and, like, information goes in, which is not scientifically correct. But yeah, so, I don't know, I think I love silliness too, and I love using humor to make a bigger point, and I just think there's, like, it's just such a flexible, it's like a little spatula in the kitchen. You can really use it for any type of confection.
Humor, the little spatula. Okay, the thing that I really adore about that specific essay is that you're talking about losing your grip on the world. And that's kind of how everyone's super high and you lose your grip on the world, but there's actually something really genuinely dark and hard in there about depression and experiencing the very edges of your mind and knowing when your mind has actually fallen apart before, right?
Yeah.
And knowing what those parameters are and what it's like to live in a way where you specifically don't head toward those boundaries of it anymore, and then having something just push you over them.
Yeah, because I, you know, so yeah, the essay is I accidentally ate an entire box of weed candy, like 80 milligrams of that stuff, and so went totally out of my mind, but I didn't realize I'd eaten it, so I thought I was having a nervous breakdown, and in paper source, actually. It's really the most middle class, like, person. But you're right, because I've had this, since I was 18, I was officially diagnosed with, depression and anxiety, and my mother fully expects me to fully lose my mind at any moment. She's always said that to me, which is really, really helpful. I don't know if you have children, but you should always explain to them how
you worry most about their mental health.
You worry the most about their mental health. That's the thing that keeps you, that makes you sick. Is she hasn't said it. But I would say, like, in my family, creativity has always been linked to kind of mental illness as well. And there's like a whole thing about like Irishness, and it's just, we all have our stuff.
Yeah.
So when this happened, this silly thing happened, I felt like my brain had broken, and it was really dark, because I work pretty hard at like trying to keep myself above water and have lots of tools for doing that, and I'm very lucky, because I have health insurance and medication and therapy, and also like I like live today in this world, whereas like if I was 100 years ago, can you imagine?
Yeah.
I'd be like in an asylum, so comfortable.
Yeah.
Bringing me food.
Yeah.
If I could just do that, I'd be on Instagram. But no, so I'm very lucky. But yeah, that was just a kind of a visit that I really wish I hadn't paid to that whole part of me,
Your family makes an appearance in several areas. In terms of, you talked about the link between depression and your creativity. Is that something that you talk about in your family a lot?
No.
At all?
No.
No.
We don't really. I mean, it's more of a unsaid thing, I think. It's funny because I see creativity and self-expression as really helpful for stuff that you've got going on, like mental health stuff. I think it really helps an awful lot. But I suppose when there's kind of, shame attached, or, stigma attached to like not feeling well, and then expressing that, then that's going to also be stigmatized.
Yeah.
So no, we don't really talk about it that much. I mean, we're like an Irish family, which I think, is more, we just like make a lot of jokes and get on with things.
Yes. Okay.
And I don't even think that's like, I think that's the case in lots of different families, except for like friends I have who grew up in New York City, who just like are so open with their, like with everything that's going on with them, from like irritable bowel syndrome to like schizophrenia, and they just like all talk about it with their parents all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just so jealous of them.
Yeah, I'm always jealous of those people and the people that got stoned with their parents when they were kids.
Oh.
Like, I always think, like, that's so cool. My parents were so not those people. My parents were, like, very worried about me always, and don't embarrass us in front of anybody people.
Yeah.
And I wanted the cooler parents, the ones that you could talk to about kind of everything.
Yeah, I know, but I agree, and, like, it would be so fun to, like, be able to see what you would have turned out like on that track. But also, like, look who you did turn out. Like, they did such a good job, and they messed you up in just the right way and became this great artist.
My mother would argue with you about all of those things. In your family, for me, there were storytellers in my family, and there's a specific cadence that the stories came out in. And I felt like I was catching on to the cadence when I was reading through your work, but is there a specific person in your family where, like, I
I think my grandfather was very like that, and my mother, definitely his daughter. But you know, you might then visit us in Ireland and notice, and I don't really like the whole, you know, like, oh, Irish people are, you know, this little storytelling, you know, but it's kind of true. But like, I like being over here thousands of miles away, and people are like, oh, Maeve, you can make a story up about a rat you saw on the train. And then they go to Ireland, they're like, oh, you're nothing special. They're all at it.
They're everywhere in Cork.
Yeah. But I think, my granddad was, you know, he really never left the island, and he just was able to make up stories out of the smallest things and make adventures up. And my mother is very creative, and you know,
how many siblings?
I'm one of 8. Yeah.
Right.
And those poor things, they're the dullest people you could meet. No, it's great. It's you know, that's the other thing about being a performer. I have all these siblings that are funnier than I am and brighter and sharper, but they just don't have the need to like tap dance for strangers in the way I do. They just have like lovely stable lives, and you know, they like make dumplings, and, you know, like they're happy.
Do they weigh in on your work at all?
Yeah, sometimes they do. They're very supportive. Like, it feels funny to be away from my family, like at times like this, you know, when the book is coming out, because I'm just like, they're all asleep. I mean, they're just in Brooklyn, no, because they're in Ireland. They're just really supportive, and I think my new project, which is probably so unhealthy, but I have like all these nieces.
Yes.
And like, I want them to be writers. So I'm always like to them, you know, just send me a little email. Here's my email, you know. Because like, they're so interesting and bright. And like, nobody ever said to me when I was a kid, like, oh, you could be like a writer, or like, I had never seen any comedy or anything like that.
Right.
So I'm like, you could start earlier and then take care of me and my dotage. You could be like the next Bill Cosby or whatever.
This is actually so big. So wait.
Or you know, like a
really?
No, a different type.
Different type.
Yeah, I just can't think of any other comedians.
When did you figure out? This is such an interesting thing, because it never occurred to me. I don't know why. I just assumed that there must have been somebody in your life that was like, you're very funny, go do this thing. When did you figure out, like, oh, I want to tap dance for strangers. I want to actually write. I want to do this. When did that become like this is a career that I can do?
No, to me it was more like a mortifying compulsion. Like, nobody said, you know, God, no, nobody was like, oh, Maeve, we really need to hear what you have to say. Oh my God, they still, you know, no. I think it was more like, I think a compulsion to get up on stage. I didn't tell anyone. The first time I was going to do like an open mic, those are rats, by the way.
I like that.
Those are my guys.
I like that.
Yeah, they're so excited for me. I bought 400 rats. We're only allowed to have 100 people, but 400 rats. So they're on the way. They're tapping, oh, here's our queen.
The Rat King.
The Rat King.
Is that there?
Imagine that, like, I get up and I would have a tail, and you're always like, oh my God.
Why didn't you do that?
If I thought about it.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were writing this, what was the hardest essay in here for you to write? Or was there not really, were they all kind of their own problem?
No, I mean, I think that probably the hardest one was writing about definitely my mental health.
Yep.
Was hard, and how much to get into that, and also writing about the border security expo that I went to, and that was just intellectually really hard to piece together, you know, without overstating it, like how much death America's immigration policies cause. And so that took a lot of research, and it took a lot of talking to people that are way cleverer than I am and proper scholars. So that was hard for that reason, because I didn't want to get it wrong.
Yeah.
And also to kind of, just from a technical writing point of view, to weave together, you know, like really good, like so many really good writers like don't put themselves into the books, but I'm always like, there I sat, you know. I always do it. So to try and get the right balance, and that was obviously not just me, that was my editor, Margot, and that was, you know, my agent, Lindsay, reads my stuff too. So that was, yeah, from a technical point of view and from meeting other people, that was a big one for me.
Yeah. Do you have, so you have your agent and your editor, do you have a group of readers, like trusted readers?
Yeah, I have, it kind of changes, like I don't really like, you know, it's such a big favour to send a piece of like raw writing off to somebody, but I do it for others and I have people who do it for me. Yeah, so I do have trusted friends that are writers who will take a look, yeah.
Do you have people...
And I will never name them.
Do you have people that send you unsolicited raw writing?
No.
No?
That's never happened to me, no. I used to, like, long ago, work on a hidden camera show, which is something I'm very proud of.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Tell me.
So I worked on a hidden camera show in Ireland in, like, 2006, and where I would just prank people. And so I used to get, it was very popular in Irish prisons and with the Irish police. Bringing both sides together. And so often I would get suggestions from both of those two groups about like other pranks I could do. And they would say, you know, like, oh, like I have a brother who... Yeah, they would have different ideas for different pranks. Their idea would be that I would tell the brother I was pregnant by him, but anyway, there's like a lot of different... But I don't get like unsolicited like essays or anything. I guess people would think I would steal them, maybe.
I wouldn't think you would steal them, but wait, can we go back to the prank thing? What was your job? Should I know this? I don't know this.
No,
I
you shouldn't. Of course you
hidden
shouldn't.
this information?
No, it's not hidden, but it's not, you know, advertised.
Okay.
But yeah, I worked on a hidden camera show in Ireland.
But what was your job? I don't understand.
My job was like a prank girl. Like I just did pranks on people.
Best resume builder ever, maybe.
So like if I would dress up like a parking attendant or like a parking police and go around and then like put like a fake piece of paper on their window and then they'd be like, oh no, I just parked or whatever, and I'd say, only joking. and then they'd be like, you're on camera. It was such a big hit in Ireland, I have to say. In the prisons
and the police, yeah. Everybody on the train.
Yeah, they couldn't get enough of it, so.
Is there anything else on your resume that I need to know about? Because I feel like that was a hidden gem. Is there anything?
No, I mean, I would say I'm a really good waitress, but like I think all that stuff is all from the same place, right? Just wanting to talk to people and try and understand people and get really nosy.
In America, you have this kind of great, I mean, with your first book too, you're an insider-outsider, right? You can like be right here and you can also observe. When you were doing the border story, do you feel like that was specifically helpful?
Yeah, because I went to the Border Security Expo, which is an industry and a government event, which is already so fucked, because it's like, and it's also lots of the same men, and it is almost all men, who like go between, you know, these big kind of arms companies and like actual like wall building companies and people who make drones and dog kennels and all this stuff that they use at the southern border. And then it's like the Department of Homeland Security and CBP and ICE, and they all meet down there every year. And so I went down there, you know, as a writer, and I pretty much fit in. I'd say apart from being a woman, I was like in a blazer, like a white lady in a blazer, and you know, nobody, I had credentials, like press credentials and everything, but I felt pretty safe there. And it was when I was walking out one day and there was protesters outside, and like, they were so, it was such a kind of a puny show, like there was like 8 people maybe. This is like a huge, like 500 square meter like convention center in San Antonio that was like full of men in uniform and armed men, and you know, and then there was like a, you know, elderly indigenous man outside just like walking around with a t-shirt, you know, saying like don't step on me, and a few college students and stuff. And I was like, I should be over there with them, but like they can just see me coming out with like a lanyard and blazer or whatever. So that insider outsider thing kind of hit me then. But I do think it's a lucky position to be in if you're writing, because you get to observe and I also get to be here, actually here in the US, which is like a fortress. I'm sure there's tons of people who would love to be here and do what I'm doing, but I think I was lucky because I was European and obviously the star of a really successful hidden camera show, and America needed me.
I think we're getting the signal that we are going to have people from the audience who have them. Questions.
Yeah, if you have any questions. Mira, thanks for your questions so far.
I mean,
Mira already said if you guys don't have good questions, she's going to keep asking.
I also, yeah, come on up.
Well, Maeve said we had to be thinking of questions.
I forced you to do
Yeah.
this. Thanks, Linda.
So I'll start giving other people a chance to come up. So Maeve, I first discovered you by listening to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Oh, wait, don't tell me. Yeah.
So on the weeks that you're on, are you like hysterically reading the news and watching the news so you won't get anything wrong, or you're just like, what happens, and it'll be funnier that way?
Yeah, so did you hear Linda's question? She said she hears now, wait, don't tell me, which is this Saturday morning news quiz show, and do I study for it? Personally, no, which is why I lose pretty badly every single time. Once I won by accident, but that was literally because the other contestant actually banged his head before. So no, I don't study, and I do. Again, that's something that I think is worth making an effort to be funny with, even though you genuinely do seem stupid because they're asking you questions about the real world, and it's funnier to get it wrong. And I also found out there is no prize. So I kind of thought, all right. Thanks for your question. Hi.
Hi, my name's Jacqueline, big fan.
Yeah, thanks.
I was just going to ask, how do you...
I love your hair, Jacqueline.
Thank you, thank you. How do you, when you're reading the news, or how does someone with depression, anxiety, whenever you're reading the news, is there a way that you filter out, or times, or blocks, or chunks of news, to get through your day without becoming overwhelmed with it?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Never mind.
Do you do that?
No, I mean, I feel like I'm constantly seeing headlines of somebody dead. I'm at work and hi, what can I get for you? I just saw, his father murdered. But I don't know, I think the question just came up because of the title of the book.
Yeah, I think not being afraid to read that stuff and to get to understand it, I think is good. And then also, I try and pick a couple of areas I think I can actually work. It's an illusion, right? To think, I can actually help here, but that's how I cope with it. I think, okay, well, there's all these deportations and there's immigrants in shackles, literally in Varick Street in New York. So I'll write about that and I'll talk about that and I'll think about that properly, I'll face that. And that gives me at least the illusion of, which is all you need really, of that you're okay, you're doing something, you're part of this world. And so I think maybe picking one or two things to deeply care about and pay attention to is actually helpful. Yeah. Thanks, Gertie, for the question. So yeah, one more question. Oh no, he's just getting up to that. That's actually my cousin. Hi. Yeah.
Is that really your cousin?
Yeah, it's my cousin, and we didn't know we were cousins, James, until my last book launch at the Strand, and then he came up. Hi, Maeve. My mum said that I think this is the way you talk, James. My mum said I had to tell you. Do you know John Kidney? Which is my granddad, who was the great funny writer. Yeah.
Now I wanted to ask things like, which of your siblings is your favorite?
Oh, you do?
Can we throw all the other ones under the bus and I'm allowed to ask that?
No, I mean, I have so many of them, but I do think that the little girls, like I said, who are my main focus now.
The nieces.
The nieces, yeah, that I need to, I just want to be one of those aunts, because I don't have children, but I know of. And I'm not going to have children. So I'm like, okay, so these, I want to be, if however much of Manhattan is still like above ground in 20 years, I want to have them come over and like me show them, and be like, this is King Kong, what's it called? The Empire State Building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were you going to call it King Kong building? I prefer that.
So yeah, it's those little ones that I'm,
You're done with the siblings. You moved on to the army of nieces.
Yeah. Also, like with my siblings, and I think I don't know if any of you grew up in like a close, tight, big family, but it's really hard to like separate out from them. So, and like we often have like the same dreams and stuff like that kind of happens to us as well. And so we're very, very close. So whenever I can, I try and think, no, maybe you're a separate person. Like it's not happening to you, So I've been, and moving 5,000 miles away has been helpful.
For that exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you working on, so I know this is like a terrible thing to ask someone when they've just launched their book, but I feel like the minute I launch something, I have to dive into something else because all of this part makes me unquieted.
Yeah.
Do you have a thing that you've launched into?
No, but my next thing is like really take it easy because I'll get my advance. So the way it works is like you get your advance, and it's the best thing because otherwise you would just spend it all.
No, it's true.
So they wait until the book comes out. So like I'll be checking my bank account in the next few days, and I'm hoping to get the rest of my advance. Then I'm just gonna take it easy. I'm staying at my friend's house. And this is not like, all I want to do is start another project, Mira. That's all I want to do. But I'm just forcing myself. I'm going to cook.
Okay, that's great.
I'm going to cook. I'm going to, that's as far as I got. I was like,
Does it take it easy equals cooking?
Yeah, cooking. I need to read. I have loads of books that I need to read. I might go back to college. I just finished a master's.
Fantastic.
So I'm really trying not to jump into another project because I've just been doing that forever.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound like, because of my parents' money. No. I know I'll have to start paying rent again soon, but for now I'm staying at my friend's house and I just really want to take it easy and enjoy like seeing my friends and, just having a good time.
Like actually living?
I feel so guilty and lazy even, especially in a church. Like, I think I should be like, I'm going to volunteer or something, but I'm just like, no. What my niece calls have a relax.
Oh my God, how old is your niece? I feel like she should
said it when she was 4. She said, I think maybe I'll be a baker. She loves cakes. She just likes eating cakes. I think I'll be a baker, but I'll also have a relax.
It's like the best job proposition possibly ever.
So I think what she means is like, go to a bakery and then have a relax. Like just go out maybe for a couple of hours and get a cinnamon bun, something like that, and then just come back inside again. And I mean, I would just love to be able to do that, and then I presume some kind of work will come along, like, wait, don't tell me. They pay good money, that's like $1,200. So if I do a couple more of them, that's,
That's baking money, yeah.
that's baking money. Right there, that's so many cinnamon rolls.
Yes. Look.
So I have another question.
Yeah, great.
Good,
I'll
'cause
stand up here all night and ask questions. So you said you wanted to do some reading. Who were some of your favorite authors, or who have you lined up to read?
There's the trilogy. J.G. Farrell wrote the trilogy of books. One is called Troubles, and he's an Anglo-Irish writer who wrote these 3 books. I think in like the late 70s. He posthumously was awarded a Booker Prize for Troubles. But he's very underappreciated, and he wrote one called The Siege of Krishnapur and one called The Singapore Rip. Yeah. And they're all about the fall of the British Empire. The Troubles is obviously an Irish, the fall of the founding of the Irish Republic. But they're really long, really long. So I've only read Troubles. So I want to finish reading him and think more about him. And I think that's my big plan. next week and I'm going to have such a better answer. I'd be like, well, actually Hulu are interested in a, or Hulu still
Yeah, exactly.
Peabody or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
Exactly.
Pivot.
Are we, yeah, okay, all right, we have run out of time, but thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming, and you will be signing books, I believe?
Yeah, I'll be signing books, and I just want to say I really appreciate you all for coming out. It would have been so embarrassing if you didn't come along. Thanks to Books Are Magic for having me, and Mira, thank you so much for hosting. You did such an incredible job. You're the best.
All right, just wanted to have a few quick closing notes. For one, we have some more copies of both Maeve's and Mira's books over at the check-in table where you came in. Like they said, Maeve's going to do a signing. She's going to do the signing at the stage. So if you'd like to get a book signed and personalized, you can start lining up right over here. And yeah, thanks everybody. Let's have one more really big round of applause for